What about now? I think I found the button. I think now it's working. If it's not, then I think it's compromised. So let me close the window so we don't hear all these kids screaming. Okay, now it's working. I can see it's working. So if it's not working for you, it's probably probably coming from you. So, yay, I'm live. Okay, guys, just as a short introduction, if anyone doesn't know me, I'm Alexandra. I'm a coach for Fish No Chips Poker and Run It Once. I'm playing mid-stakes cash games, and we used to do these streams on Run It Once channel, and now we're gonna move them to our channel. Um, Subscribe to it. There's going to be a lot more activity coming up soon. We're gonna post videos, we're gonna do these hand review streams, and we are also planning to launch and start marketing a bit more our CFP. We decided to take some players at lower stakes, so if you like my approach to the game, Paul's approach to the game, yeah, make sure to join our Discord, shoot us a message, and if everything is finally working properly, I've received some hands from a member of our Discord community. And we set up my camera properly. And yeah, we're gonna look through them, see how he played, and obviously if, something goes wrong or we aren't sure, we're gonna look into GTO Wizard. So that being said, if there's no questions or things to add, let's get into it. I can't see the chat all the time, but I'll make sure to look at it regularly. When I go through hands, I can't really see the chat, unfortunately. I'll make sure to set up everything better for the next time. So first hand, we see we play 3 max. I'm not sure what stakes this is. It's 200 NL, but I think this student is playing in some kind of secluded pool. We see a flop of 6-3 deuce, and personally I would just range check here. I think you can implement some batting strategies, but I'm not sure. It's going to be much more difficult to play, and I'm not sure the EV is going to make a huge difference. And especially some people tend to overstep here, fold to check raises, and so on. So I would range check, but I would be aware that, when we range check, we probably need to find a bit more check raises. Our opponent bets small, which, yeah, I don't really like much. This is a board that's definitely not great for us. I mean, if you think about it, we don't have 6-3, we don't have 6 deuce, we don't have 3 deuce. We do have 4-5 though, which is the nuts, and villain is supposed to 3-bet that from time to time. But then we also have all those overcards that he's also 3-betting from time to time, and we open always. That just completely miss this board. Therefore, we should either range check here, or if we do bet, I think we should bet very infrequently and very polar. With strong bluffs and strong value hands. So if I do want to implement a betting strategy, I would just go bigger. Yeah, I got there. Is there any way I can turn my microphone up a bit? No, apparently not. I can just take it closer and try to speak louder. I will make sure to buy another mic. I bought another mic already because there was this issue, but this one is still bad. So yeah, I will promise to invest in a better mic. Okay, let's move forward with the hand. We bet small, we face a raise, which is, yeah, what villains should do when we start betting too often on this board. We do have to call a raise, but we're not super happy about it. Actually, would it make sense for us to 3-bet here? I think it makes some sense because he's gonna have here a bunch of hands that are a pair plus a draw, like 3, 4, 6, 5, stuff like that, that we can get value from. And then I'd probably rather 3-bet here 8s than aces, because if you think about it, he doesn't really have higher overpairs than 8s. 9s plus should almost always be 3-bet in this configuration. So this is basically, in a way, as strong as aces, but it just needs way more protection. So yeah, it's not gonna do great in a check call line. So from that point of view, I think 3-betting at some frequency might make some sense, although I probably prefer having a spade. If there's a king, we check, and he bets again for half pot. Which at this point I find quite weird. Because is he raising here something like sevens and then continuing for half pot on a king? Probably not. I think this card kind of removes a lot of his, thinner value bets that want to raise and bet the turn. So it doesn't make much sense for me as value. Maybe if he has some like king x of spades, something like that. Um, yeah, but I think this is quite easily going to be a bit overbluffed. So, especially against this size, because people probably have sizing tells. By the way, this is really not a size we should use here. We should bet very polar and probably use a pot size or an overbet size on a card that's really not great for us. So yeah, I think this is gonna be very often a tell, so I don't mind another call. And now, yeah, to be honest, I think I would call again. Um, because of the same reason, like, what raises the flop for value? And then bets half pot on the turn, half pot on the river. I really doubt he's gonna do that with a straight or a set. And I think there's still a bunch of bluffs available, like 4-7, 5-7. I don't know, ace 4, ace 5, that this hand is going to be good enough call. And it doesn't really block any bluffs. Doesn't block value either, but I just don't know what kind of value he has here. So even though when we bet, we face a raise and then a barrel, I would tend to overfold to those because they are generally gonna be quite underbluffed. But this one is a very weird thing. His sizes indicate he's probably a recreational, and it just doesn't go with a lot of value combos. So I think it's gonna be easy to overbluff. As I said, like, I would just mark this guy as a whale and give him rope to bluff very frequently because, you see. Okay, let's get some water, see if the stream is working. From the microphone settings from Windows. Okay, I'll make sure to do that next time. Is the stream also a bit blurry? It says the bitrate is not great. Well, fuck. Okay, I'll make sure to do better next time. Let me know if you got what I was talking about in this first hand. If there are any questions or things to add, I'll make sure to reply to them. If not, let's just move on. We threw bet ace 9 suited against under the gun, which I think is a bit too loose. Of course, if the guy is a recreational, if he's just too loose or, making a bunch of post-flop mistakes, that's perfectly fine. I think even against the reg, it might be close. Yeah, but definitely on the loose side, I would probably just fold this, and my threshold here would probably be ace jack. It looks okay, or maybe it's just me? No, I'm not blurry. I'm not, I promise you. Okay, we go on a flop of jack 8-4. I think I would just simplify to range betting here for something like 40%. This is still quite a good board for us. We have the overpaired advantage. We are probably gonna have more jack X if we 3-bet correctly. And yeah, it's a decent board for us. In theory, it's not going to range, but it's probably going to mix. But yeah, I think people just don't really find enough defense or raises. So I don't mind actually going for a range, but we check call this. Um, okay, display. Sorry, display. I don't really like. I don't like. First of all, we need to understand this is a very tight position configuration. And second, we need to think of, how our range looks like and what kind of properties this hand has. So when looking at this hand, what I see it's that it doesn't really block any value, especially with hearts, because ace jack, he's going to have just suited combos. The ace of hearts doesn't really block any value. Second, it does block some bluffs with random backdoor flash draws with the ace and then 9-10, which he could have. And third, it really doesn't have any kind of house to improve. I mean, we just have an overcard. It's not like we see an ace, we're super happy we can get all the money in. We're often going to, get a flash draw or a gut shot or something on the turn, and we'd either make a bad call out of position or we'd have to fold it. So, and also just the fact that the position configuration is very, very tight. Like if we were small blind versus button, yeah, I agree, we still beat a bunch of bluffs and so on. Here, it's not really the case, and I think this is towards of the bottom of our range already. So yeah, I don't really like this call. If you want to continue here, I think I would like a check raise more, but that's even that is just way too loose because we have much better hands. Um, and I think the play here is just, range betting, maybe evaluating on the turn, because we will have good turns to barrel on, like hearts, an overcard, which is, better for us, 10, a 7, we could barrel on. But I think this play is probably going to be, like, one of the lowest EV lines we can take. And if we check the flop, just check fold. Again, tight range, we don't need to, get so sticky. Hmm. Okay, and now when he bets again, I mean, of course we can really fold, but this is like the scenario that I was talking about when, we just get to call and then we get a good turn and we call again and we just burn money playing like this. So I think check shove is viable here, although what I would say about that is a villain is calling, from a very tight position. He's batting the flop and continuing big on the turn, and this line is going to be quite underbluffed in tight range spots. So when he's underbluffed, we don't really want to start check shoving light because, um, yeah, we're gonna get to fold some values, some bluffs, but if he doesn't have enough bluffs, it's just that the folding frequency will go lower. That being said, this board is not really that connected. I think he could, especially because some people just call a bit wider than they're supposed to, and he could still have hands like, I don't know, Queen 10, maybe, even though he's not supposed to have maybe a bit too many suited connectors. So I think we would have some fold equity here. If I get to this point, I would probably just check shove, but I don't like the 9 that blocks a few folds. Yeah, I mean, and if we call, we don't really get implied odds because I doubt he's going to shove on a heart if we get there. We do have the ace, which helps because if he has queens or kings, which he should, we can get an overcard. So I think it's close between calling and shoving. I think we might even beat some bluffs from time to time, although I expect those to fire the river most often, stuff like king queen, or so on. But yeah, I think it's not really worth talking a lot about this hand because I wouldn't be on the turn in that scenario in the first place. And now when we get to the river, I think exploitatively I actually like this because it's so difficult for us to check and call twice with nothing, and then we will have some ace king because we have equity against his value and we still beat all the bluffs. And the ace king also, especially if it's not hearts, also has some better blockers to the jack axe. So I think it is probable for us to have ace king here, which will be good enough to shove. And it's also very unlikely for him to value bet himself right on a king. So because this card improves our range and also makes it very unlikely for villain to bet himself, I think it makes sense for us to start donking, and I think over bluffing does make a bit of sense here because, again, it's a very difficult spot to find bluffs because we shouldn't be here with this hand in the first place. So, yeah, if we just have here all the ace x of hearts, then it gets a bit different. But, I like the idea. I like that you think outside of the box. I really don't like the flop play. But if we get here, I do like that you found this play. Quite expected. um, just as an insight, these very tight range scenarios, especially when they start putting in big bets, it really not good spots to be continuing very wide. That's why I would fold flop. Okay, let's move on. We 3-bet big blind against cutoff with ace king, perfectly fine, and then we call. Yeah, I mean, I think it does make some sense if we assume people under 4-bet and therefore a shove would, have lower EV than in a solver. I think in theory this is gonna be close between call and shove. Um, Yeah, I personally wouldn't have many calls here with ace king off, but I don't think it's a huge deal. I guess you can call. He goes for a quarter c-bet on a board that's quite good for him. I mean, he's gonna probably have some king queen offsuit. We're not gonna have that many king queen. Um, Although jacks and tens, not sure how often he would 4-bet, so maybe that is a bit in our advantage. But the other thing is, we're gonna have those lower suited connectors that we are supposed to 3-bet and call a 4-bet pretty often, like 5-4, 5-6, 7-6, that completely miss this board. And we're also not gonna have aces or ace king as often as in position. So definitely a better board for him. We just go for a check call, which I like. I think this is way too mergy to do anything else. What? Kevin, are you in the chat? Hola, Jose, ¿qué tal? So yeah, Kevin, if you are in the chat, I'm very curious about your thought process in this hand. Because, yeah, I'm quite surprised. And do I get it? Let me think about it. So, I think our hand is somewhere around the medium strength hand by now. I think it doesn't make that much sense to put it in a bluff catching line just because it's a 4-bet pot, tight range configuration, as I said before, and also a triple Broadway board, which is not really gonna be over bluffed by anyone. So if we check here, I don't really expect him to bluff all that frequently. But then we have a pretty shitty hand. What are we trying to get value from? Like, if I have ace queen here in his shoes, I would probably snap fold. Likely you don't know my nickname, because that is exploitable, but like, yeah, I think this is just a bit of an overplay. And even though, yes, he won't bluff, I think first of all, this hand is not worth that much in this scenario. And second, he might just check back turn and then we bet river. I think it's way more likely that he's gonna call us with something like ace 4 or ace 5 or I don't know, kings or whatever, just because he might think we have those low miss flash draws at relatively high frequency. But yeah, I think this is just the kind of play that gets worse to fold and better to call. I wouldn't really do this. Yeah, naughty Kevin. That's nicely said, Laurencio. That's you, right? Okay, let's move on. We three bet against button to eight big blinds. I think this is not necessarily a standard size. Probably the standard size is a bit smaller. Although again, most people overcall out of position. They don't really realize how tight they should be, especially against this size. When you open 2.2 and he goes 8 big blinds, I think it's very close to out of position being supposed to just 4 bet or fold and never really have calls. So when we see a lot of calls, when we see, they don't 4-bet enough, they don't check raise enough post flop, I think it's actually a nice exploit to go a bit bigger. He checks and we check back tens. Yeah, I don't really like this check back. I do agree this is not the greatest board for us. But again, tens is still very, very strong here. He will have a few jacks, but mostly it's very strong. And then he's going to have all the stuff like flash draws, like eights, nines, that are going to call on the flop. He's gonna have king queen of diamonds here, that can do anything, and he's supposed to fold on the flop, which is good for us because we don't want to give it free equity. And yeah, even though we're not supposed to range bet here or anything close to that, tens would be a much higher frequency bet than aces, just because it needs so much protection. Especially with a spade, I think it's even better to bet because we have some added equity. So, yeah, again, Kevin, if you are around, hello, hello, Poker Mindset on our page. What's up? How's my video? Is it working properly? So yeah, looked at the chat again, but Kevin, if you're here, would be nice to hear your thought process on this end and why you thought checking back is better than betting. And now when he goes this small, this is actually a decent, a good play, because at this point most of our range consists of overcards and some traps, but mostly overcards. And with this size, he can start value betting really, really thin. He can probably even bet stuff like fours if he has it, any pair. If he ever has ace king, I think even that can be a value bet. So yeah, along with any pair that needs protection and some thin value. So I think at this point we have a mandatory raise against this size if we decide to play the flop like that with tens. But we decide just to call, river's a queen, and now he bets big. I mean, yeah, I think this is still a low board. A bunch of bluffs available, though some of them get there with a queen. I don't know. I don't really like having tens here. I think it blocks a bunch of natural draws, especially with the spade. But then I don't know. There's a bunch of missed draws here, and the other idea is a lot of his turn very thin value bets like fives, 7x, 8s, 6, 5, whatever. Um, are not really willing to go this size here. So what is he saying? That he basically probed a queen for that size, or some kind of three, which is again very difficult to have, or a set, and now he's value betting that. I think it's quite rare, but possible. I would prefer to have a queen blocker. And again, I just wouldn't really be in this spot at all. And I think it's quite a pattern, like we get to a bit of a more difficult decision on a river. It's happened in this hands a few times, but we just shouldn't be there. So the mistake, whatever we do here, it's probably earlier in the hand that leads us to play a spot we shouldn't really be in. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's very, very close. I think if you have reads on the opponent, they would help. I think it's very easy to overbluff this spot if you play like that, especially if you play against weaker people who just find like bigger bats on the turn with sixes, sevens, and 4-5. But yeah, I do think it's close. Okay, trying to do something with my audio. Is it better now that I'm staying close to the mic? Hopefully. So his probe shouldn't be bigger on the turn. No, it shouldn't be bigger because it's a situation where he's gonna have a somehow polar range in the sense that he has all nets, but he's also gonna have a bunch of pocket pairs and the thin value combos that want to get some thin value and protection um, against our overcard. So in order for him to be able to bet those combos, he is supposed to go a bit smaller. And also it's not a spot where he's representing the nuts. I mean, he does have some sixes and sevens, and I don't know if he has any 3x. So it's not a spot where we just want to overbet or check because, again, we have a mergey range with a lot of stuff that needs to get value against a range that is quite polar. I mean, in position, he's going to have some nutted hands like aces, kings if he decides to trap them, maybe some ace 3, and then he's going to have trash. And when ranges are constructed in that way, we usually want to use small bets, not big bets. If the turn here would have been a king, then definitely things shift, and there he should bet very infrequently and for a huge size. But yeah, not the case here. Again, I'm not really sure what we base our 3-betting sizes on. Before we had tens, when they big blinds, we have jacks, we go 9. If we have queens, are we going 10? Or is it just based on the player profile? Because definitely if this guy is a recreational, I like sizing up and making it bigger. Against this, I think I would tend to shove jacks because his 4-bet size here should be a bit smaller. And, jacks are kind of break even between shoving or folding. But the more you increase the 4-bet size, the more we want to shove and the less we want to call, because obviously the odds for calling are worse. And by getting the pot down pre-flop, we just win more money. I don't think shoving is mandatory here, but yeah, the lower the SPR gets, the worse they are going to play post-flop. And yeah, I think against this size, I just prefer shoving. Fold flop, very easy fold on the flop. Please don't call. Okay. So yeah, in this scenario, even against a smaller size, I think we should fold jacks because they just block so many of his bluffs. I mean, yeah, queen jack is not a frequent 4-bet, but he might have it. Ace jack is going to be a frequent 4-bet. What else? Jack 10 might 4-bet sometimes or should 4-bet sometimes. And yeah, the other thing is we don't have any kind of outs to improve. Like, I'd much rather call here any 9 or any 3 if we have any, or even 8s might be a bit better just because it blocks less bluffs. But yeah, jacks in these spots, even against smaller sizes, I mean, if he bets quarter, yeah, we might have to mix in some calls, but it's not a good hand. And yeah, I like the fold here. What stakes am I playing? Currently mostly 200 NL. I kept having a year with a lot of expenses. So yeah, can't manage to put up a proper roll for 500, but hopefully soon. But these are not my hands, Jose. These are the hands from some of my students and Discord community. And apparently they went quite quickly. I didn't really expect they went so quickly, but we have enough technical issues already, so we're gonna close after this one, and I promise you the next stream will be much better, so make sure you'll join so you see it. Here, villain opens 3.5x and gets called by the cutoff. I think this guy is either gonna be a fish or some very weak rag, or he's gonna have, some very obvious hands that he doesn't want to 3-bet with but wants to call. So from that point of view, I would like to squeeze here. Um, there's a bunch of that money into the pot. This guy's a fish. I don't mind playing against him heads up. And this range is probably very capped and gonna fold very, very frequently. The reason why I would maybe, you know, not wanna go for a squeeze here is that he opened 3.5 PB. And what I would like to know is, does he mix up his opening sizes, or is this his standard size? If this is his standard size and he just does this quite often, I think it's a no-brainer squeeze. If he usually limps or opens 2x or 2.2 and now he suddenly makes it 3.5 BB, I think it would be quite a terrible squeeze. So that's what it depends on. Against half pot, just gonna check call. I don't see what check raising or doing anything else accomplishes. And now he bets pot. I'm already really unhappy here, to be honest, because again, if we assume that's not his standard opening size and he goes so big, then he goes half pot on the flop 3 ways, and then he he goes this invented size on the turn that, if you look at mass database analysis with recreationals, is going to be insanely underbluffed. And the third thing, if he does have bluffs, our 10 blocks a bunch of them: king 10, 9 10, ace 10. So yeah, it might sound neaty, but I wouldn't actually mind folding here if we think that's, not his standard opening size and we don't have some reason that this guy is an aggressive fish or something. Fold. Okay. Maybe we do have a read that this guy is a aggressive fish or something. Like, obviously, this hand is played perfectly against someone who plays like this. It's just against the average fish, it's probably not gonna work that well. Yeah, this is just a terrible play from under the gun. And what I would add here is, if I play against a guy who just does this, remember he started batting 3 ways. I would probably just not really raise my value combos and start raising a bit more bluffs, because my fold equity is going to be huge, but then when I have value, I can just get so much value from a bunch of his trash combos that I don't need to raise, and then just get value from his value combos. I mean, against his value, the money is gonna go in anyway, and then on top of that, we're also gonna get a bunch of value from his bluffs. Jamming jacks is worse than in theory because people don't 4-bet suited broadways like king 10 in the cutoff, so if call and jam are the same VLP call. Actually, I think calling might be a bit better if they 3-bet king 10, right? Because we just really dominate that hand. It has an undercard to the jacks, and against hands like king 10, ace 10, stuff like that, it just plays better. But then if their 4-betting range is a bit tighter and includes way more ace king, way more king queen, and stuff like this that we're flipping against, and also if our opponents don't really bluff post flop enough, or don't really get enough money into the pot, I think it might actually be a bit more profitable to shove, especially if they make it such a big size. But I've never worked enough with a preflop solver to say that for sure, but might be something I look into for the next stream and let you know. Dean says, is king overplay sometimes? Yeah, here with this guy, yeah, of course. But like, again, When I see this, I would like snap squeeze this hand pre-flop. So, uh, of course, we need to play so differently against recreationals based on what what we know about them. Um, but if we've seen similar stuff, I would just snap squeeze pre-flop. What might be my win rate for Russian cash 10 and L? I think I would win in the games. I think it wouldn't be very high though, because I mean, I don't know what was the rate, probably about 8 big blinds per 100. I think I would beat the games, but I don't think I could get a huge win rate because no one can. Because you're just playing in reg infested games and the rake is high. There's not a lot of recreationals, and the recreationals that play Zoom are very tempted to just fold many more hands because they can just, go to the next hand and not play as wide. Therefore, the Zoom recreationals are going to have much smaller loss rates than reg tables recreationals. So, I don't know. I would say maybe I could get 3 big blinds, 4 big blinds per 100, but it's very difficult. If I saw ace 5 offsuit, what would be the bottom of my squeezing range next time? Yeah, I don't know how 10 and L plays. I imagine it's a it's a soft game, but you need to respect the rake. You need to respect that even though you have an edge on the regs, they are still gonna be regs. How much they can lose? 10 big blinds per 100. Okay, out of those, 8 go to rake. You don't only have fish, so it's hard to get a huge win rate in Russian cash. That's why everyone who makes money in those games, the money comes from leaderboards and rake back, and maybe the top players have like a big blind or 2 big blinds win rate per 100, but it's very rare. Pretty much everyone loses. Bottom of my squeeze range. I mean, it depends what we mean by bottom. I think I would be very tempted to start squeezing here stuff like 5-6 suited, but it doesn't mean I would. Maybe ace 10 offsuit in terms of high cards, then something like jack 10 suited for backdoors, for suited broadways. I wouldn't squeeze stuff like queen jack off. I think king jack off is good enough, and yeah, some suited connectors I would start 3-betting as well because they have good playability when getting called, but I also expect a lot of fold equity pre-flop and a lot of fold equity to c-bets when, I see these ranges. How about regular tables? 50 and L with GG Poker's rake. I think I could get like 4 before rake back, 4 or 5 big blinds per 100. That is if, I would play. My problem when playing 50 and L is I usually can't really take it serious, and I often make plays I wouldn't make in higher stakes because I'm like, it's 50 and L, let's just. And that's, I don't advocate for that. It's definitely bad. It's definitely one of my mental leaks. But I think if I would play my A game, I could get like 5 big blinds per 100, maybe 4. But again, that's huge for GG games, and we need to be a bit more humble and understand that. Okay, guys. How much hands do I play each month? I don't know. I try to play up to 100 hours, 80, 100 hours every month. I don't know. I guess that would be around 40,000 hands. It really depends on how many hands how many tables I play at the same time, and that varies. I can't personally play well more than 6 tables, and sometimes I can't play 6 tables because I don't find enough tables. So I always get more volume if I grind later in the nights because the tables are much better. There's much more traffic and quality traffic. But yeah, I just try to put in the hours and play quality and not really bother that much about hands. I'm not saying it's the best approach, but that's what I'm doing. Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed the stream with all the technical difficulties that we had. I play GG right now. I mean, it is good to go to the lower stakes. Yeah, so let me take them in turn. I play GG right now, although I see even at 200 sometimes the tables are really not a lot. And I'm looking into depositing on some more sites. I'm looking into Coin Poker, Unibat, and some app games. If you're interested in those, with some we also have some affiliate deals. So yeah, if you're interested in that, get in touch with us. And about being good to go to the lower stakes if you're trying to get comfortable with some concepts. I mean, I don't know. I'm in two minds about that because I feel if like you're a good poker player and you've studied some concepts, you're confident with your play, even though you're trying to implement new concepts, it would be a waste of time and money to try to move down to lower stakes just to implement those, because there are probably going to be spots that won't come up very frequently. And I think you're just much better off if you're trying to like actually practice a concept, just start drilling and set your drills that it's actually always that spot coming all over again, and then you're going to be much faster with learning and practicing the concept. And you're also not going to have to waste time in lower stakes where you could have a higher win rate. Now, if you're a beginner to poker, let's say you have a role to play like 50 NL, but you're not that good, you start getting coaching and learning, pretty much everything from scratch, then yeah, I agree, it's a much better thing to do to move to lower stakes, but it depends what we're talking about. Thanks for being here, guys. It wasn't a lot of people, but I think for the first stream, it's great. I really appreciate you being here, and I'll see you next week at the same time. Again, we are running a CFP now, which I think is very, very good, and a lot of content, a lot of great things. If you're interested in that, we're gonna give some details on Discord. And the usual, find us on Discord. You can send hands there for review or for the streams. And see you next time. Bye.